Catherine, the Duchess of Kent, was given a funeral today in Westminster Cathedral, the requiem mass, the first Catholic funeral for a member of the royal family in modern British history. The service featured a message from Pope Leo praising her legacy of Christian goodness, with Cardinal Vincent Nichols presiding. After the mass, the coffin was taken to the royal burial ground at Frogmore. The King, the Prince and the Princess of Wales, and a wide circle of Windsors attended. The story, however, became the person who was not there. Buckingham Palace announced that the Queen, Camilla, had withdrawn at the last minute, recovering from acute sinusitis, though she remains hopeful of taking part in the state visit of President Trump beginning at Windsor tomorrow. That juxtaposition, too unwell for a royal funeral today, yet potentially well enough for pageantry tomorrow, is the optical problem. And compounding this were fresh briefings this evening that the Queen will never forgive Prince Harry for extremely unkind remarks about her in Spare, the villain, the long game, the PR altar. Whether sourced to courtiers or insiders, these lines were pushed across friendly outlets this week, and the timing invites an obvious criticism. If there is energy to brief against a son and brother on the day of an historic funeral, there should be energy enough to attend the funeral of the oldest royal in the family. It reads as petty, it reads as misjudged, and it undercuts the palace's message of family solidarity at a moment of solemnity. And I think one should be fair before we are sharp. Acute sinusitis is brutal, headaches, pressure, fatigue. No one should trivialise it, yet statecraft is performance as well as duty, and modern monarchy lives or dies by judgment about appearances, and a last-minute withdrawal always carries risk. It carries more risk when the same briefings suggest she hopes to rally for tomorrow's diplomatic theatre. That is the gap between medical explanation and public interpretation, and Reuters put it crisply. Rest today, likely present for the Trump visit tomorrow. That is a tough headline to defend when mourners, including an elderly Duke of Kent and a visibly working royal family, have turned up. Now for the funeral itself, it was dignified, distinctive and distinctly radical. Catherine Worsley chose Catholicism in 1994, decades before such a choice could be treated as routine. She was brought into the Catholic Church by Cardinal Hume, teaching music under the name Mrs. Kent, championing young musicians, showing a humane touch that became her hallmark. The presence of the King and the Waleses underlined that this was family before politics, faith before spectacle. That is exactly why the absence of the Queen jarred, and into that space crashed the noise about Harry. There is a well-worn comms pattern here. One wing of the press runs unforgiving copy about the couple in California, another wing floats conciliatory whispers, and the palace claims neutrality while distance is measured in anonymous quotes about who will never forgive whom. It is not necessary to adjudicate the rights and wrongs of Spare to say this. Briefings about vendettas on the day of a funeral insult the deceased and diminish the living. If reconciliation is off the table, say nothing. If reconciliation remains possible, say even less. Either way, the Church's lesson for a requiem is restraint, and the media lesson is timing. The palace lesson is message discipline. Optics aside, the day carried historic meaning. A British royal funeral in a Catholic cathedral would have been unthinkable for centuries. The Pope's message, delivered by the Apostolic Nuncio, acknowledged a woman whose public duty and private faith were woven together, something that the late Queen Elizabeth II also praised in her own way throughout her reign. That ecumenical stitching of national life is precious. It doesn't require uniformity of belief, only generosity of spirit, and that is what today's service offered. There were other signals. The presence of the Prince and the Princess of Wales and the King without his consort placed the core of the working monarchy front and centre. Prince Andrew's sighting inevitably complicated the tableau, reminding viewers that reputational liabilities remain within the family photo, but the overwhelming tone inside the cathedral was decorous and compassionate. The problem is not the liturgy or the congregation, it is the noise intruding from outside. The whispers about Harry, the calendar clash with a contentious state visit, and the avoidable impression that household priorities are skewed. So, what should have happened? 3 simple rules. No briefings today, none. The story is the Duchess's life and witness. Let the requiem breathe. If the Queen is too unwell to attend, the line must be unadorned and consistent. She is resting and will be guided by doctors regarding all upcoming engagements. Do not trail tomorrow's stamina while explaining today's absence. Let surrogates manage the trump optics later. On reconciliation with Harry, stop the psychodrama. If a thaw is desired, privacy helps. If a freeze is chosen, silence helps. Either path is undermined by this theatrical peek through the press. In the end, funerals judge us, not in theology alone, but in tone. The Duchess of Kent spent a lifetime lowering the temperature, consoling a tearful performer at Wimbledon, teaching children music without trading on her title, quietly backing charities that dealt with the vulnerable. Today was not an occasion to match her grace. The service did, much of the family did, some of the messaging did not. The monarchy cannot afford such avoidable own goals, not because the institution is fragile, it has endured far worse, but because trust in public life is already thin, and because faith rituals deserve reverence rather than rival headlines. If there was energy to brief about unforgiveness, there should have been energy to hold fire, to show unity, to show up, to allow a remarkable woman's requiem to speak for itself.